Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Uncut Hawaii, a place where we get to chat with Hawaii's top entrepreneurs, creatives, and changemakers.
Yeah, uncut and in their own words. So today we have Chef Robynne Maii, who is the chef down at Fete in Chinatown. Have you been there?
Oh yeah, I love it. Their double fried chicken.
Ooh. She recently won a James Beard Award.
That's huge, especially for Hawaii because the last winner was in 2003.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hawaii's so proud.
And what also makes it extra special is she's the first woman of Hawaiian descent to win it. So
Ooh, I know.
Hawaii is stoked, and we're stoked to have her on here.
Yeah, so we are so honored to have her on, and she talks about her journey and what it was like to win the award. So let's get into it. All right, Chef Robynne, thank you so much for joining us. And we want to get into your whole story. But first of all, congratulations on the epic, huge award, James Beard Award. Does it feel real?
It doesn't feel real still because we've been too busy. So thank you so much for the congratulations. It's overwhelming. And you know, we're still in COVID, so we all came back from Chicago and we all got sick.
Oh, damn.
Are you serious?
No, I said to Emily Iguchi, our chef de cuisine, went to the trip with us. And so the house lights on the Opera House were coming down. And I turned to her, and the last thing I said was, "You know, we're all gonna get sick." And she said, "Shut up!" She's like,
"Oh, you manifested it."
Well, because there were people from all over the country, and there were just a lot of too long interactions with people that you don't know with too many. Yeah, it's just too many people. So
yeah, it was like inevitable almost.
Yes, I guess it was worth it. So.
Well, I'm glad you are healthy.
Yes, everyone's healthy now.
Good.
But it started this chain reaction of like people. We weren't all sick at the same time. It kind of just went one after another. And so we were already short-staffed with the restaurant, and so having people not be at work was extra challenging. So
yeah, I was about to ask, isn't Emily like your right hand person?
She is.
So it's like, did you guys both get sick at the same time?
No, she got it first, and then we were just testing constantly, and then I ended up testing positive 3 days later. Yeah.
Well, again, I'm glad everyone is healthy.
Yes, everyone's healthy.
Thank you for being here with us. We're so stoked because, you know, I've worked with you with Hawaiian Airlines and all that, and like we talked a little bit about your story and whatnot, but like we really want to deep dive into your journey and like you know how you became a chef and everything that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell us where the story begins. Did you always know that you wanted to be a chef?
That's really an interesting question. I didn't know I wanted to go to culinary school until my senior year in college. So everyone was like trying to decide if they're going to be a consultant, if they're going to go to law school, med school, and it was this huge dilemma for me of what I wanted to do. My parents had just spent a fortune on college sending me to Middlebury, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do something like you guys, something that you're passionate about, something that you were excited to wake up every single morning. I'm sure our parents worked really hard, but if you ask them, "Hey, do you love your job?" they would probably look at us like, maybe not. But they had families, and they understood the importance of working hard and providing for their families and buying a house and sending their kids to school. So I believe all of that. I just thought, well, couldn't we do this doing something that made us happier?
Right. I mean, you're going to spend several decades doing it. So,
yes.
Yeah. So what path were you on at that time?
I think
senior year in college.
Probably to be a teacher.
Oh,
okay.
Because my mom was a teacher and my grandmother was a teacher.
Oh.
My dad has taught. My sister has taught.
Oh, wow.
So it was just sort of
in the family.
Yeah, it runs in the family, and it was
for a lot of people. That's how it is. You know, like you grow up around that, and like you kind of just like not forced into it, but you kind of just grow into it because it's comfortable. So for you to do that,
and respectable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
like we have Asian parents, and so it's nice to be able to say, my daughter is going to be a teacher, right? It's harder for an Asian mother to say, oh, yes, and my daughter is going to be a cook, right? Not even a chef, because the chef part comes later.
Later, yep.
Right.
So what made you take that leap to consider culinary?
Well, when I told my parents I wanted to go to culinary school, the first thing they said was, well, you're on your own because we can't afford any more schooling. And you know, I didn't realize how expensive culinary school was. So if you look at like the Culinary Institute of America or the French Culinary Institute, it's really expensive, right? So in any of these programs, right, if you wanted to go into graphic design or media or fashion, they're all very expensive. And so
how long too is culinary school typically?
It typically maybe 2 years, or maybe if you just did like a really fast program, maybe a year. But it's tens of thousands of dollars, and so when you graduate or you get your certificate, then now you have to, you know, pay your loans back.
Yeah, pay off your debt. Yeah.
Right, and then but you're making minimum wage typically. So depending upon what city you're in, that could mean, you know, $8 an hour. It could mean $10 an hour, $12 an hour. So, so it doesn't really add up. So I decided to come home to Hawaii and go to Kapilani Community College, which was a bargain, and it was so awesome.
It's such a great program too, and not a lot of people realize that.
Yes, and then not only that, it was already a bargain, but then I ended up applying for scholarships. So really, I paid almost $0 to go to culinary school. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And you get to be home.
I got to be home, and then, but you know, because when I moved to New York City, I think I had this little like chip on my shoulder, like, oh, I didn't go to the fancy schools. But then you quickly realize you're like, oh my God, I know everything that you know, except that I don't have the attitude. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like thinks they're the shit because they went to CIA or you know. So and the funny thing is Emily Iguchi, who's our chef de cuisine, she also went to Kapilani Community College.
That's awesome.
So
did you meet her there?
No. Oh, dude, that's another podcast. No, seriously, we should do a podcast on Emily Iguchi and Robynne Maii. Yes. Because the short story is that I lived in New York City for 15 years, and Em lived in New York City for almost 11 years, and we never met each other. However, we lived a block and a half away from each other, and we know probably about 20 people in common.
Oh, crazy! So, but you guys never met each other directly,
right? But from all
that's a surprise. Is she from Hawaii too?
She's not from Hawaii, but she moved to Hawaii for culinary school. Okay. And so, but she went to UCLA. And she lived with one of my friends from high school. Like, it's so nuts.
Really close connections.
No, it is. And so, like, close connections in all aspects of our lives. So it's pretty. It gives me chicken skin to think about my relationship with her.
So how did you guys end up connecting?
Through one of my first culinary students. Worked with Emily.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Sal. And so he kept on saying, like, you have to meet my friend Robynne. And, you know, all of a sudden, Chuck, my husband, we already moved to Hawaii, and Emily was still in New York City. But then through the Coconut Wireless, we found out that she was moving to Hawaii with her husband, who's also a chef. So I met her at Fete. She came in for lunch one day.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so back to your story. So Kapilani, and then
what, even before that though, like, were you interested in like culinary? Like, what kind of sparked that? Were you cooking at a young age, or like did you grow up around that?
Cooking. So I think we take it for granted growing up in Hawaii how awesome our food is, right? Yep. Like every meal is awesome.
Yes.
Right. Even simple meals are awesome. And so when I moved to the mainland, I just assumed that everybody was eating delicious food all the time, right? And then you quickly realize, oh.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. It's not the same. And not that there aren't like good things here and there that are regional specialties, but growing up Hawaii, everything is delicious. And so my parents both cooked. We rarely went out to eat. If we did, it was a special occasion. So we were always spending time in the kitchen. So it was very much, I mean, my sister is also a good cook. My brother is a good cook. Everyone can cook in the family.
Oh, nice.
What kind of food did you grow up on?
All kinds of food. Well, my mom is ethnically Korean, so there was always kimchi on the table.
Homemade?
Yes.
No, never homemade.
Oh.
She's just a little bit Korean, except for her personality.
Yeah.
She's very Korean. But no, it was always store-bought, and it was always, but we would have taco night or spaghetti, and there would still be kimchi.
Yeah,
right?
That's how it is.
Now they've combined it, and it's amazing.
Yes, or kimchi on a tuna fish sandwich. You ever had
that's
that?
funny.
No.
It'll change your life.
Really?
Yes.
I'm having that for lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just make a regular tuna fish sandwich and put kimchi.
Tuna. I mean,
Oh, that's a great idea, though.
So delicious.
I can imagine it'd be really good.
Yeah, especially in Hawaii. I mean, like, it's like a mix of like different cuisines and, you know, cultures and whatnot. So the food is, you know, shows that as well. Yeah, so that's interesting.
And all my grandparents were born and raised in Hawaii, so it's not like, you know, my grandmother came from Korea. So really, I grew up very, very local.
It's like local style Korean.
Yes, local style Korean. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was so interesting because she was a very good cook of all things, including Korean food. But she was also a fantastic baker.
Ooh.
So she was constantly baking like chiffon pies and coconut cake.
Oh,
and
wow. Those are fancy
cream
baking.
puffs.
Should have ate before I did this.
I was thinking this.
And the most amazing thing she would make, I mean, she would make these for New Year's Eve, for New Year's Day, she would make these huge Korean spreads, which, you know, just appeared.
Like the little things?
Yes. Like 20 things. And she would do it all herself.
Wow.
And not until I went to culinary school did I realize when I was trying to, not until I moved to New York City when I was trying to replicate these meals, I realized how much time went into them. Also, she used to make her own croissants.
What?
Wow, that seems like a really like skilled thing you need.
Yeah, and she's making it all by herself.
I wouldn't even attempt to do that.
And she taught herself. So I remember being really little and being very greedy and stuffing the croissants in my face. And she would always scold me. And she said, you have to enjoy it. Like, Grandma spent so much time making it. And, you know, it just looks like a little pastry. So my 10-year-old brain is wondering, what's the big deal? It's so delicious.
Yeah,
and then I went to culinary school and we did croissants. And I said, holy shit, I can't believe my Korean grandmother taught herself how to make croissants
Wow.
in her little Aina kitchen.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so special. I mean, most people grew up with like chocolate chip cookies or something like easy, but homemade croissants, that's pretty special.
And they didn't appear weekly. It was probably something that she did a couple of times a year.
But still, that makes it very special. And I think like grandmothers in general, right? They just want to make sure you're fed. They want to make sure everyone's fed.
Yeah, it's all the love. My grandma spent like all of her time in the kitchen cooking.
So that was kind of your first exposure. I mean, you grew up around it in your family and all that. And do you remember like your first meal that you cooked or like anything?
First thing I cooked, I was probably 3 or 4, and it was scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs, yeah.
At 3 or 4 though?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. With my grandmother.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are like precious memories already.
Yes. A lot of box muffin baking, which I thought was just amazing. I just love, and still to this day, I love the taste of blueberry muffin batter.
Ooh.
I don't know what it is about it. I just love it.
The taste of the batter.
Yes.
The boxed muffin batter.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it
Blueberry.
has that. Yeah, the blueberry one though. It has that smell. Not necessarily blueberry. It doesn't really smell like blueberry.
And my parents bought me, gosh, I must have been 8, 9, or 10. Maybe you guys are too young, but they had a little baking oven for kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? With like the little packets of cake batter and the little heart-shaped.
Those things came back. The Easy Bake Oven?
Yes.
Yeah. Those things came back like my kids asked for that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Get them exposed to the kitchen.
So you had that?
So I had that, and my parents we always had people over, small groups, large groups. And so it was always a mix of, the larger groups, it was always a mix of cooked things and catered things. Like there was a old time catering company called Aketh. I don't know if it still exists, but we would always buy noodles and maki sushi from them. But then mom and dad would always cook the rest. And so, but crazy things. where my mother would make this huge bowl of lumpia filling.
Ooh.
And then what everyone knows what lumpia is,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's labor intensive. It's like making mandu or making gyoza.
Totally.
You just have to like get into it, sit around a table and just like get
everybody
into it,
help.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then my Korean mother says, okay, here's the wrappers and here are the scissors. You're going to cut the lumpia wrappers in half to make minis. So, you know, it was just,
step,
right. So much work.
It is. But then it's like you're all together doing it.
Yes, all together. So food is very important. And it's funny because I have 2 siblings and we're all married and all of our spouses love eating and cooking as well. So I feel like that was really important in the picking our partner. Yes.
So you're not the one that has to cook all the family meals
when
you get together.
It's like a full-time blood sport when it comes to talking about food and what we're going to have for the holidays. Yeah.
That's fun though, because I mean, like, you know, you talk about like food bringing people together and celebrating, and I think that's where you kind of like the concept behind Fete as well, right? Like just like cooking good food and that people like to enjoy. So tell us when Fete came into the picture, and like, did you always know you wanted to open something up, or?
No, I thought that, I mean, really, because I left industry, and so when I say that, people ask, what does that mean, leaving industry? So it was so awful. Not everything about it, but some of the jobs that I had were just so brutal. And to think about having a family, or am I going to be feeling this way at work for the next 30 years of my life? Like, it just, I couldn't see past it didn't seem like a viable situation for me. So I was trying to get out of the kitchen, stay in industry, but maybe still do things with food. And so I never thought about opening up a restaurant until, I mean, the short story is like we tried to get pregnant, we couldn't have children. And then we just decided that, hey, let's do something for us. Like we can do this. I'm like really simplifying it. But so we really started thinking about it in 2011.
Okay.
So 2011 to 2014, we really worked hard on the business plan, and with this idea that we move home and open up the restaurant. And we really wanted to open up a restaurant where people felt very well taken care of, and that the food would be a foundation for their occasion. I just felt like there was this movement in New York City, especially, where the food just became more important than the people. And I think that's fine. I think it's like it's going to Broadway or going to a museum where you're appreciating someone's craft, and that's why you're going, because you're having this grand tasting menu and everything is like very specific. But we wanted to open up a restaurant where people felt they could drop in for whatever reason, and that their occasion was the most important part of being at Fete.
That's awesome.
What was I know you said that you never thought you would open up your own restaurant, and it does have kind of that. It seems like a really difficult thing to do. I mean, we're not in that industry, so we don't know. But what we see from the outside, it's like everybody's like grinding so hard, like working long hours. And it seems like a really monumentous task to try to take on. So did that scare you? Like the idea of opening your own restaurant, putting your name behind something?
It was scary. I did a lot of talking to people about their small businesses, restaurants, and other people. And then I realized that opening up a restaurant is no different from what you guys do. Whenever there's a shoot or a video, I look at Chuck and I said, why do these people do this? This is so crazy. So it's funny because people think we're crazy, but I think that everyone,
it's like every
industry has it.
Yes, and I think that restaurants have a bad like rap, not rap, but like people say, oh, that restaurants are the most unsuccessful businesses, right? It's because more people think they can open up restaurants than any other industry, right? So when people think, oh, I want a business, they think, oh, I love food, I love cook, I can cook, I open up a restaurant. So it's not really true. The only reason why more restaurants fail is because more people are opening up restaurants.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's more numbers
but
to that.
There's
statistic.
still failure in all other small businesses.
For sure.
It's just that people don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I'm going to own a hair salon right? So that's the interesting thing. And the hard work was never, we like to work hard. I mean, you guys like to work hard. It's very physical what you do. And there's a lot of heavy lifting, right? And it's the same thing with restaurants. It's just, I thought people would question me not being in the industry and why, and question that was something that I was a really sort of emotional hurdle that I had to get pushed through, because I didn't have the pedigree, right? Like, who did you work for? Right? You ask everyone in Hawaii, right? Who did you study with? Who did you yes, right? And I didn't come up through Alan Wong's or Roy's or you know, Danielle Balud's kitchens or, you know, Alain Decas or any of those people. But I was very passionate about cooking, and that's how I spent all my free time, was just in the kitchen.
I love that story, because there's multiple ways to success, not the typical one that everybody seems to typical road that people tend to take, but there's more ways to get to a certain point than what people might expect. I love that.
Yeah, and I think the big thing you were saying too was, like, even when, like, in college you're trying to figure out like what you wanted to do, you wanted to do something that, you know, you were passionate about and stoked to do, and you were saying that the industry wasn't fulfilling, so you found another way to stay in, you know, culinary but not through the industry. So that's awesome.
Yeah. How long were you out of, what do you call it? Out of
industry? I know, yeah. That's like
a long time. My last kitchen job before, well, that's not true. So my last conventional kitchen job was in 2001.
Oh, wow.
So then we opened up Fete in 2016.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So that's a long time.
So it had been like 10 years before you even started planning Fete.
Right.
Okay.
But in that time period, I was in culinary education. So it wasn't as if I wasn't in the kitchen doing things. It's just, you know, culinary education is very different. So there's not the pressure, and then of course you're teaching, and there's a lot of pedagogy and all of that. So
so you were teaching, or were you learning?
I was teaching,
nice.
and I was running programs. So two different
Oh, nice. So you
yeah.
kind of like took it back to your roots.
In New York City.
Yeah, tried to get back to your teaching. Yeah.
Right. So I did.
That's true.
Yeah.
You combined the two somehow.
You combine your two passions. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I had I was on tenure track at a very, very good community college in Brooklyn. And so when we announced that we were going to leave, all my colleagues said, "No one leaves this job, you know that." And I said, "I know, because it's awesome, because I barely work and I make pretty good money."
Yeah.
You know,
and you're on your way to getting tenured.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there were semesters where my husband said, "Do you work?" And I said, "Oh, you know, this semester I only have to roll in twice a week."
Oh, wow.
he just looks at me. So
but I bet that was very fulfilling as well, because, you know, you came up as a student, and then you're able to kind of give back in a way too, right? And teach like the next generation. So that, I was kind of confused when you said like my first culinary student, Sal, right?
Yes.
So was he learning in Brooklyn with you?
No, he was at the previous culinary school.
Okay.
So,
but still, so
yes.
you were a teacher at one point.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome too, because when you teach, like, even like when we will like have workshops, and you actually have to switch your brain a little bit to be like, now I have to figure out how to do the thing, but then to explain it and teach it, it's like a whole nother level of knowing your shit, basically.
Yes, it's very hard. And I think the reason why I loved it so much, and this is what we still do, Emily and I really just do this every single day, is impress upon everyone patience and repetition, right? So don't get frustrated. Be frustrated, but understand that the next time you do it, then it's going to be easier. And I know everyone wants to go fast, but there are just certain things that just need their own time. And that's cooking, and that's, or, you know, anything, any artistic endeavor, right? And so what's hard is that nowadays there's so many restaurants that are they're designed to have robots in them, right? So the Olive Garden,
like all the systems,
systems, right? And so when we do have cooks who have that experience that come through Fete, it's very difficult because we're asking them to pay attention to every single detail, and because of the way we source, things don't come in a tidy weight or ripeness. It's everything, we get what we get, and it's our job to eke out the best of it. And so we really cook the way that our grandparents cooked. So they didn't have the luxury of having whatever they wanted whenever. They just they made the best out of what was on hand.
Yeah, what was in season.
Yes,
and what they
and
had
what
available.
You're able to source, right?
Right, and so the thicknesses of how you cut, the steak. So the cooks always want to know how long. How long? And it
depends.
It right.
Yeah.
It always depends. Yes.
Oh, see, that's so. Would you say that makes Fete unique? To you're saying, to the systematic restaurants and whatnot. How, because then I know you source locally and you bring in different ingredients at different times and whatnot. So it's kind of just problem solving as you go and just making do with what you have, right?
Yes, it's problem solving every single day. So when I see, and we're so lucky now because I think that Fete is old enough where the kinds of cooks that are attracted to being at Fete they understand what we're doing, and they're sort of dedicated to that process. And I think that most independent restaurants, that's what they strive for. That's why they didn't open a franchise. It's very, very difficult. Everyone says, how do you get the food to taste this way every day? And I said, I cross my fingers and you just keep on. Really, I tell people and they laugh. I said, it's a miracle that anyone gets anything good to eat on a daily basis.
Stop.
Because it's so hard. It's so hard. And even though there are recipes, and even though Emily and I are both of us are there almost every single day, we can't have eyes on everything. And so we have to continuously check. And so that's why I think when you go to a restaurant and you think to yourself, it's just it's fine, but it's not great. It's probably because the person in charge wasn't there that day. It's as simple as that. Because, and it's not that everyone is not working hard. It's just, it's so difficult. There's so many details. If you watch people who really, really cook well, especially, I'm not talking about restaurant people. I'm talking about people who don't cook for a living. If you watch them cook something that they love and just watch them, they will taste the dish probably 2 dozen times.
Yeah, all throughout, right? Yeah.
Right? Until it's just right. So imagine having to do that to an entire menu of food that have multi-components, right? So we're trying to train people to bring this spirit to how they're cooking.
And that's huge. We talk about this with so many of our other, we've done so many podcasts here, and in every industry, owning a business, it's about that trust and bringing on someone that you trust, because you can't do everything yourself. So how was that for you? Did you develop that trust right away when you started Fete, or you brought in Emily and then your team, and how was that?
Well, the trust, so we've learned over the years, Emily and I, that we have better luck with people who have less cooking experience.
Because you kind of mold
you can help them.
Yes. So it doesn't matter what age they are. It matters what cooking experience they have. It's the sweet spot is someone who's probably been cooking maybe 1 or 2 years.
Oh, that's
so
okay.
So they have some
the basics down.
Yes, they know how to move in the kitchen. They kind of know what the program is, but they haven't been in industry long enough to
unteach something.
Yes,
that's kind of like when we talk with filmmakers. And
yes,
stuff.
It's the same thing, right?
Know the basics, but we want to get you to here.
Yes,
okay.
And we really try to emphasize that how we do things at Fete is is how we do things at Fete. Like, you don't have to, you're going to go to a different kitchen, and please don't say, well, at Fete we did it this way.
Right.
Like, just do it the way that the chef is asking you to do it.
Yeah.
Please. I don't want to be a part of your narrative. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense. That makes sense, though.
Right.
Everybody does it differently.
Right. And because the reality is that hopefully these young people are going to then go on and do their own thing, and now they have more to pull from, right? They have, because certain things are appropriate for certain situations. So like you said, it depends, right? And so the more that they learn, the better off they'll be. And to make that, we call it, Emily and I say, like, what's the move, right? Like, what move are you going to do in this situation? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned about when you're imagining creating Fete and you're like coming up with like how you want it to feel, that you wanted it to be about the people too, not just about the food. So how do you do that? How do you make it about the people?
I think when we first opened Fete, everyone wanted to have a very neat sort of, what kind of food are you doing? And I would say New American, and then everyone would say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so then I said, well, we cook food that we like to, that we want to eat. And they're, well, what do you like to eat? Right? So it was just this. So we loved entertaining at home. We really miss it, actually. And so our approach to having it be about the people is just asking them to trust us, that we're going to do our best to provide you with a delicious plate of food. I see it all the time with people who come in for the first time. They're very nervous, right? Because they've heard about us, and then maybe they don't go out a lot, and then they come, and then you want to make the right decision, and it's I have felt that way in many restaurants in New York City, right? The hype, and then
especially with all the Yelp and everything, right? You're like all the reviews, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta order this.
I mean, especially now with all the,
it's so hard, and so we really try to reassure people that if you don't like it, then that's fine. Let's find something that you'd like to have, and I think that's another reason why we opened up a restaurant, because so many restaurants that we were going to, again, I don't mean to bash on New York City, because there's so many awesome restaurants, but we just kept on, we were second class citizens, right? You go to the podium and you check in, and the hostess barely looks at you. And then when he or she does, they roll their eyes. There's a lot of eye rolling, and then you sit you sit at the table, and then you order, and then you get told, well, the chef's going to send it out how they want to send it. It was just this whole weird thing. And then you've just spent a fortune. And Chuck and I like to drink wine and cocktails, so we just spent $300 on a
plate that you didn't even want,
right? Or that was just really lackluster, except that the entire Instagram world thinks that it's the shit, right? Like, and so Chuck and I would say, are we just assholes? Like, seriously, is there something? And then,
are we missing something?
Right. And then you start talking to people off social media.
Yep.
And everyone thinks the same thing.
I feel that, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but no one's going to say it because somebody knows somebody or whatever. So we really try to, that's why, like, I think for me, the proudest thing about Fete is when I take the time to look at the dining room and see who's in the dining room, it's so diverse. The kinds of people, the ages of people, where they're from. It's such a diverse crowd, and I love that. I really, really do. The best is when kids tell me that the food is good.
Oh, that's the ultimate compliment.
Because they don't lie.
Yeah, they don't,
That's so true.
That's true.
So, yeah, I think finally 6.5 years in, I feel a little bit better about how things are.
Nice.
Good. Yeah. And so, and it's like an experience, right? And like how would you describe the experience that people can expect when they go there?
I think that they can expect delicious food, first and foremost, and then things to go with it. So Chuck does the wine list, and really what he's trying to do is pick wines that go well with food. And I know it's intimidating for some people because they don't see their favorite wines or they just don't see their favorite varietals. And it's not because we don't think that they're good things, but we're always thinking about food. So does this, and so a lot of our wine list is very acid forward, you know, because that goes well with food.
Kind of balance, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So people should just kind of have an open mind.
The open mind, and also I think that our front of the house staff does a really great job of, we ask a lot of them, meaning what are the ingredients, what is this made from, who are the farmers, and so it's a lot of explaining. And so again, we have to trust them to convey all of this in. And you know, people have short attention spans, right?
Yeah,
so
especially now, yeah.
Yes. So it's also very hard because of the way we source. People read about things online, and then having to deal with their disappointment that we don't have this dish that they're like fixated on, right? So the servers have to sort of say, I know, like, you know, we're out of that today because it's not in season or we didn't get it in, and then but this is really delicious instead. So yeah.
It's kind of just go in and open mind and trust the process.
I love what is the way you talk about the way that you source. So tell us about that and how important that is to you.
So I think I started thinking about this when I was teaching in culinary school. So we had to order our own ingredients, or we had to put in a requisition, right, to the purchaser. And I would see many of my colleagues have this sort of, like, every single week have this tantrum. Why didn't I get this? Why didn't I get that? And I was just watching this play out, and I knew I knew this person who did the purchasing, and because it's a culinary school, you have to, you know, there are minimums. You can't buy like just 1 ounce of of a spice, right? You have to buy the whole container. So for the way that I did my planning was, I said, I'm just gonna have her get things I know that she can get, because I don't want to start off my day that way, right? So what is easy? What is easy to get, right? And so that's how we do it at Fete, meaning we're an island.
Yeah.
Right?
What can we get?
What is here? What is here? So we don't have that added stress. So that kind of falls into just buying local, seeing what's available, and then backing into it menu wise, because I don't want to have that's why chefs have tantrums, because they're not they're unable to just adapt. And so we never wanted to be that way. So we're asking people to trust us. We're saying, like, hey, we may not have your favorite, we may not have the onaga today, because there's no onaga, right?
We can't get it.
We can't get it.
And if we do get it, you don't want to know where we had to get it from.
That's right. It's been on a boat for 4 weeks.
Yep. The easiest thing to get is probably the freshest thing that just came out of the ground.
So that's how we source, and it just makes it. It doesn't make it necessarily easy because the production is difficult, but in terms of how we source, and it's just easier.
Yeah. It kind of makes it fun too, right? Like working with you.
Parameters.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardest thing is if we do special catering, the person's like, just like do anything. And I said, no, I need a little bit more than that.
Yeah. That's how it is with anything, I think. It's like too much creative freedom.
Has it been fun do you actually get to like go to the farms and like talk to the farmers, or do you?
So sometimes. So my goal now is to visit every single farm that we source from. So we source, for a little restaurant, we source from over 30 different vendors.
Yeah, and local vendors.
Yes. And so that's a lot for a small restaurant. So we just went to Kualoa Farms. It is amazing. Anthony Mao is our point person there, and he arranged for us to have a whole day at Kualoa, and it's like Disneyland.
Yeah.
And it was so impressive. The cows are in these paddocks on the mountainside. And so I looked at them and I said, oh, I don't feel bad about eating you.
You had a great life.
You have a great life. You know, so they do, everything is in a nice cycle of life at Kualoa. And I think that what they're doing is very, if more systems could be based on that, then it would be really, really, really awesome. I know it takes a lot of labor. I know it takes a lot of money. So I'm by no means saying that it's an easy proposition, but they're working really hard at making it work. So we try to visit everyone. It's very difficult. But going back to what you were saying about locally sourced things, I think also people, the guests appreciate the fact that they need to wait for something, right? And they look forward to it. And so I think that as a society, especially in America, we just have completely not devalued the idea of waiting, right? Like, let's wait for the next whatever season, right? And so, and then our guests understand that, okay, well, we didn't have this today, so we're going to have something else. So,
kind of like, again, like just coming in with an open mind and just like being able to adapt on both the customer level and then also in the kitchen.
Yes, for sure.
Is there an ingredient that you're into right now?
Everyone always asks me this. What is the ingredient that I'm into right now? Well, there are these crazy expensive local potatoes from Maui.
Ooh.
Are they the little ones?
They're like little and different colors.
Yeah,
and they're like wildly expensive.
Are they? I see them on plate. I mean, it's like purple and yellow.
Yeah, like all the different colors.
Yeah, they're so cute and fun to eat.
They're delicious. It's like a protein. It's so expensive. I don't know. It's so hard. It's because it's like when people ask me what are my favorite dishes or what, it really depends on my mood. So I'm always I really, after all this time, and it hasn't even been that long. So even after 6.5 years, I'm still in awe. You know, when the deliveries come, I just love just marveling at what other people can do. So I always get upset with the cooks if they're not respecting the food because I said, you didn't grow this. Do you know you know how hard it is to grow this? I said, we have the easiest part of this whole chain. You know, and
that just gave me chicken skin.
Yeah,
it's that you appreciate that and care so much about that side of it because they are like probably the most unappreciated part of the whole chain too.
Right, and the people who the fishermen risk their lives. I mean, you guys probably know people that fish, right? And they're very, very they're superstitious, they're secretive, and they know that anytime they go on a boat, things could go wrong.
Yep.
So there is that sort of weight, right? And so I have to tell the cooks, I have to remind them. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they need to be reminded, right? So you have to respect the fish. You have to respect the vegetables. You have to respect all the meat and everything that comes into because somebody actually made it.
I love that because that spirit will carry, like it starts with you, but it will carry through your kitchen and it'll carry through your restaurant and to the person who's eating the food, hopefully.
I think a lot of people don't realize that part of the journey as well. You know, it's like, the food gets cooked in the kitchen and you're eating it, but then like what happened before all that? Like how did this ingredient come?
It is not an easy life being a farmer. We have farmer friends and it's like they are up at the crack of dawn. They're working all day in the hot sun and
pests. It's brutal, you know, and I think because from day one we made a promise to each other and then to also to our guests that we will tell you the truth, right? We will tell you the truth. So I'm not going to supplement if Julius Ludovico's chickens get attacked by mongoose, right? And so there's a cycle, right? So chickens take 6 weeks to get to weight. So he has all these chickens at different stages, right? And so if part of the stage because they're too little, and then a mongoose gets into the coop and basically decimates that group
of that stage. Yeah.
Right. So that means I'm not going to have chickens for like a certain week, right? Like, I don't know what it is.
That's crazy, yeah.
So we're not going to supplement with another chicken. We're simply not going to serve Ludovico chicken. You won't be able to have fried chicken when you come to Fete. And when we tell people this, they're not upset. They're like, they feel bad for Julius and the chickens, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, but I do know that, and it's literally like on Eater, every single week there's a different article about this.
I love that double fried chicken.
This restaurant said they were doing this, but they were actually not sourcing this way, or they were lying to the guests, or because of the pressure. Right? And so we change it up a lot because of availability, and we're very transparent. When we first opened up Fete, we weren't sourcing as much locally as we are now, and so we had this like really delicious burger, and so this is in the first year we were open, and it was a feedlot beef, right? And so one of the servers said, a guest wants to know where the beef comes from, and I said, you can tell them it's from a feedlot. And then they just looked at me, and I said, no, I'm being serious. You can tell them that.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't leave, and I said, no, it's okay. Would you like me to go out there and tell them? Because we don't have anything to hide, right? And then when you think about how you run your own houses, or how your parents ran their houses, right? There were certain things that were unnegotiable, right? We have to get this brand of shampoo or detergent or show you, right?
That's a big one.
And then there were other things where like anything that was on sale was okay. Because the household had to maintain a budget. But there were certain like favorite things that were unnegotiable. We run the restaurant the same way. So we are a scratch kitchen, but we use a lot of Hellmann's mayonnaise or Best Foods mayonnaise because we love it. It's delicious.
Yeah, that's right? The best one.
So we buy our fries because our fry is delicious. We're not going to make... So we try to do we try to do that mix. Like you're coming to Fete for a point of view. And this is our point of view. And it might not be your thing. And that's okay. It's if you make a movie, if you make music, it might not be everyone's thing, but that's okay.
Yeah, but you're aiming toward that target guest, target client, target customer, and that's who's going to be attracted to you, right? That particular guest, that's your target guest, right?
Yes.
We don't want all of them. We do not want all of them.
And even in our cooking too. So I won't ever send out... How many times have you ordered a steak and you know that it's not the right temperature?
Oh, I don't like to order steaks out because I know I can cook it at home.
Right. Because you've been disappointed.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
Right. So I'm not going to... I've worked places where the chef will lose their shit because they sent out a medium rare when everyone knows that it was raw, or something like that, right? And then it gets packed to the kitchen, and then there's this whole...
Yeah, they get upset.
Right, it's just... So I will tell Chuck, I said, you know what, this needs more time, or I'll say, hey, I overcooked this. So can you please go out to the table and say, the kitchen overcooked this. You're welcome to have it. We'll take it off. Or... if you want a new one, you're gonna have to wait. But I'm not gonna like pretend that's
just keeping yourself accountable.
Yes,
too, right?
it is right.
And I think that just
honest.
adds value. Exactly, it just adds value to what you're serving and what they're eating as well.
Because also, I think that people have to be reminded, and that there's real people making the food.
Yes, yes.
And again, that goes back to what I said before. It's a miracle. I mean, really, it's a not a miracle, but
like you crush fingers every time. Yeah.
Because there's so many things happening in tandem, right? And so what I like to tell the cooks is if you have on one hand perfection, on the other hand,
Realness?
not acceptable, so unservable, right? Oops.
Oh, sorry.
Whoa. Really, we're trying to hit that. We're not trying for perfection because nothing will get done. The cooks will go too slow. They'll be enthralled. They'll just be like we're just trying to make this really, no, that's not Fete. That's not Fete. So we are trying to hit that sort of middle to almost perfect. Consistently.
And that's the target.
Yeah, that's the target. That's a sweet spot. So the sweet spot is pretty big, right? And so, so that's what we're trying to do every single day, because that's it. Otherwise, if we ask for this perfection every single day, we're going to drive everyone insane.
Right.
It will take too long, and then we'll make everyone crazy.
I feel like as a guest, I'm not expecting perfection. I'd rather have the honesty. Like, it might be a little over, but if you want it, give you
the choice.
Right. Like, I'm part of this decision. Like, I'm part of this experience too.
And I think that's going back to how we were raised eating, right? Right. How many times is like your mother or your dad said like, oh, did it a little bit over today, but it's still good, right? We're not saying you have to pay for it. You were just saying because you're out. We realize that you're out, and we want to have a good occasion, but it's hard.
And I'm sure your idea of perfection is way, way up here.
Oh, I know. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I have to calibrate my mood and reassure the cooks, reassure the front that everything's like okay, and so
I love that approach. Like so many times you've mentioned like you kind of run Fete as you're running your own house, like like how you cook at home, how your parents cooked for you at home, and you kind of just like stuck to your roots and brought it to your restaurant. That's
Personally, I love those are my favorite meals. Like going to somebody's home and just like feeling that warmth and like
it's all about the experience.
Like the food doesn't have to be perfect, but it's like the whole experience.
Right, the whole experience. And so that's what I think. With the way that food was moving was so much about the food, and that the stakes were so high, and then it puts chefs and restaurant operators in this untenable situation, which then leads to, okay, you know what, Avia, he's coming in, we'll just do it this one time, right? We'll just supplement, we'll just supplement this one time, and then the one time, how it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Right? You just
once you compromise,
it just becomes too easy to do, and so it's really sort of, and it's not. I'm not trying to be holier than thou about it, or Pollyanna about this whole thing. It's just what is practical, right? And so that's how we run the business. And it's the same thing with labor, right? So everyone's like, what's going on with labor? And I said, well, everyone has labor issues. My brother-in-law, who has a dentist practice, has labor issues. So what do we do? Do we hire someone that is just a warm body to just fill the space who creates chaos, right? It really, really makes it harder. Or do we adapt the business to the number of people that are working? So that's that's sort of what we decided to do when the pandemic happened. So once we realized that we secured our PPP, then we decided, okay, no more yeehaws. Like, it's just not worth it. You have to, in order to work at Fete, you have to be like-minded. You have to be dedicated to understanding what we do here. You have to be kind. You have to be generous. And if you're not those things, you cannot work here.
Yeah, you have to stick to your values.
Right? Because you spend so much time. You have the wrong person on the crew, and it's just
so much time that you already invested, the hours of time that you'll never get back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
I think a lot about owning a business and a restaurant, or I guess a business in general, is like just problem solving and adapting, and you're able to do that. So
yeah. I love that. I love the whole approach.
Yeah.
I want to go there right now. Let's talk about the award.
Okay.
Yeah, did you?
I mean, tell us. Okay, so I was talking to my husband, and I was like, Robynne Maii, James Beard Award. He's like, what is that?
So a lot of people don't know what it is. So just really quickly, James Beard was sort of a bon vivant. He was also a culinary teacher. He wrote cookbooks. He was a contemporary of Julia Child. He grew up in the Pacific Northwest.
I didn't know that.
And he was gay. And he he loved to eat and drink. And when he passed away, he lived in the West Village in New York City. When he passed away, Julia Child got funds together to buy his house, and it changed into the James Beard House. And so, gosh, I think I want to say probably in the 90s the awards started, and so they are sort of the most esteemed awards in the culinary world in America. Yeah.
So how do you...
And so the last person to win from Hawaii was like 2003, right?
Yes.
So that's like 19 years ago.
19 years ago.
So now coming out of COVID and everything, and then... So do you know that you're nominated first, so you go out there, right?
Yes. So it's still overwhelming. So I have to like gather my thoughts. So the reason, so James Beard, the house took 2 years off. So in 2020, they announced the semifinalists, and then they ended up not saying who the winners were. And it really, really, really pissed off a lot of people.
Especially for the people who were nominated.
So you're a semifinalist. So the semifinalist is sort of a bigger pool. And then several weeks later, they announced the finalists. So it goes maybe from like 10, 15 people down to 4 or 5 people.
Do they give out a certain number of awards a year? Or on the year that they were doing it?
So every single year they tweak the awards. So back in the day, the regional awards were fewer, right? And then so they started breaking it up based on, geographically, because New York City was lumped with everybody else. So every single time New York City would win.
Right.
Yeah, the New York City restaurant would win.
Okay.
So it gets sort of revised every single year. There are a lot of awards, and then there were no awards in 2021. So 2022 was like very exciting, and normally first-time nominees don't usually win. So this is why it's even more unexpected.
That's crazy.
Right. So when it was happening, I know it sounds very cliche, but it was a very out of body experience. Emily is on my right; she's screaming. My husband is like screaming, and he's basically, I'm sitting there, and he's basically like,
you stand up. You won.
So then so that's why it was overwhelming. I think that if I had to put, what I felt sad about was the other nominees all came. And I felt like, and this is, I hopefully I'll get my thoughts together and share it with the Beard Foundation. But I just felt that there should have been something more for all the nominees.
Because even just being nominated,
yes, is a big deal, and it was a big trip, right? And so I just felt there should have been a little bit more attention to the nominees as a group, right? And then, so it was very bittersweet, because I was very keen, because you don't go by yourself. You bring a ton of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then there's the anticipation, and then there's the expense, and then who's watching the restaurant, right? There's all of these logistics that have to be figured out. So I do feel that just to be nominated there needs to be a little bit more huge pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're nominated, you can say, like, if you're like Emmy nominated filmmaker or whatever, you can say like James Beard.
Yes. But I do feel like because of the occasion and having everyone in one
award ceremony portion, right?
Or maybe even because they can't have a 10-hour award ceremony. I understand that, but just something during that weekend, because everyone is already there. Yeah, but
I know you're so humble, because like,
No,
even when we're
I know.
asking about the award, you're like talking about other people.
I know, like, I was the sad part. I was like, how can there be a sad?
Wait.
What's gonna be the sad part in this?
So it's very exciting. It's very unreal.
What does it mean to you? Like,
it means, for me, it means that everyone that has contributed something to Fete is being recognized. And I joke and I said, I'd like to thank my accountant, but really, I like to thank my accountant. Like
without your accountant, you wouldn't be here today. Instrumental,
right? And everyone talks about the farmers, and everyone talks about, right, who makes our cheese? You know, Emma makes our cheese. But what about all the other people that bring stuff to the restaurant? There are so many people,
so many hands,
so many hands. And the repair people. Let's talk about them. So for me, the fact that Fete got recognized means that everyone that's contributed it's working. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah, and you're so generous in that, because it also shows like what a great leader you are, because you're leading this team and they're wanting to do a good job for you because of the leader that you are and the little environment that you've created.
Well, I said this in other interviews, and other print things, that I wanted to change industry, meaning that why are we yelling? Why are people yelling at the poor delivery guy?
Yeah.
It's not his fault.
Yeah, just doing their job. Yeah.
Right? Like why are we yelling at our rep? Because something didn't come in. That's not the rep's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it's, again, I'd like to remind everyone we live on an island, right? So when I hear about these old tropes of, you know, chefs freaking out because they're not getting what they asked for, I just don't understand. I don't think it's good business. I don't think it's how you treat people. And so we really try our best. It's not to say that we're perfect. We're not perfect, but we're just really trying to do better.
Yeah, you do talk awesome. About it. I hear you talking about it like a business, and like as if we were interviewing any other like business owner, versus like I feel like a lot of chefs might have this more like, I'm the artiste.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. Maybe they have a you know, they are the artists, and there's a restaurant owner that's taking care of the other aspects, and so. Right. But it's just it's Chuck and me, so you know, we're married and we have to problem solve, and you know, we don't have children, so we have the headspace to do this problem solving. I think that, you know, when I think about chefs that have kids and they run restaurants and they're chef owners, and I don't know how they do it, because it's all consuming, right? So we have that space, that extra space. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like so stoked for you, and like
I know,
and like
that's so
not
crazy.
only were you the first to win since like 2003, but then also like first female of Hawaiian descent, right? So like that's huge for the people of Hawaii.
Yeah, I think that people are finally realizing that Hawaii is more than a destination just for sun and beach and mountains, and that we really truly are a culinary destination. And I know it's a big trip for people, but I get sad when I hear about people going to a cheesecake factory.
No.
Yes.
Right?
Lining up, like why?
I know.
Or Subway. Right? Like eat something different while you're in Hawaii.
Exactly.
So
you can get all that back home.
Right. And also to be in Chinatown. So it was really, gosh, when I think about when the pandemic first started, it literally overnight, there was nobody.
That's
the whole island,
yeah. That would be such a weird sight, just to see Chinatown quiet and empty.
So it's wonderful to be. We made it through, and we're going to continue to do as much as we can. And I don't know what the future is.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, what's next? I was like, what's next?
Where do you go after you win a James Beard Award?
Well, I think, and not to, I said to everyone, it comes with a lot of responsibility, I feel.
Yeah.
Right? Because now people are watching more, and then there's greater anticipation, or like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I don't know. Yeah, I think we
keep doing you.
We're going to keep doing us. And then hopefully I would like to do one more brick and mortar project.
Yeah.
And do something that will allow me to do more sweets. So, and then, right. So sweets
Grandma's croissant recipe.
Sweets and ice cream and that kind of thing. Yeah. But that's just, that's way down the line. And then I would love to do a cookbook, of course.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would love that.
But I just, because I love cookbooks, and I think people have seen some people who have sit upstairs in our PDR dining room, our private dining room. They've seen our library. So I would love to do a cookbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know.
You guys had a private dining room.
Now we
can throw some parties there.
Yes, it's really nice. It's intimate. Nice. And I still want to do more with, I don't know. I always feel like we should do more of like philanthropically. Like and everyone says you already do a lot, and for me, it's because it's not. You can probably get that I'm very retentive and sort of OCD. So for me, I want to really hone in and make a bigger impact than doing these sporadic things where I feel focus. Yes, where I feel that our energy is just being dispersed rather than honed and making a greater impact. And this is that's what I would like to focus on, is sort of, and of course I've asked our dear friends at Team Umu to help us sort of get there. That's awesome. Because they do it so right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have an amazing platform now, and we definitely need more of you and more of your expertise and
even just energy. Like I love your
just
energy.
Your energy. Like, I mean, even like going forward, a big topic of discussion is like eating, like having more sustainability here on the island, and being able to just like more easily get the food that's being grown here, or make it easier for people to grow things here, and less dependence on outside of Hawaii. So I don't know. I feel like maybe you could lend your expertise somehow.
Well, I think it's already happening with the pandemic. It changed the farms, right? Like all of a sudden, everyone loves Costco, right? I mean, I love Costco. Yeah. It's like my guilty pleasure. But it's this idea that, I can spend $4 a pound on kale. Like, that's okay, right? And so everyone wanted it. And so the farms thrived in the pandemic. And I think that it's not going to go back, right? Like, I think that
the way you're exposed to that.
Yes. And so I think that it's the moment to continue with that and to remind people. And so they can, there is Costco for certain things, but maybe they're doing a CSA, or maybe they're visiting the market more often, and they're realizing this is why this food is so expensive, right? Yeah. And that it's worth it.
It's worth it. It will last longer.
It's more delicious.
I don't even buy any produce from Costco. It's like dead in the next day.
Well, not just that, but like it's funny because then through the pandemic as well, like at home as well, like my wife and I were like more picky now with food, right? We go to the farmer's market and all that, and like, when you go to Costco, yes, it's cheap and you buy in bulk, but then like we always like end up wasting a lot of it.
Right, because you can't get to it.
Exactly. Right. But it's like if you're like more like, I guess like focused and honed in on what you want to cook. Yeah, intentional when you buy things. It's like, whoa, this tastes better. Yes. And you don't waste anything, and it's just like higher quality, and you're supporting local. So
it is such a good like homey feeling when you go and like buy your produce and like spend time making something. That the act of like going through a recipe book, it's just I don't know, it just makes you feel so like so homey.
Well, I think
it's a good feeling.
It also ties into time, right? Yes. So the pandemic forced people to slow down. Right? It changed the way how we valued things and purchased things. And then time became different. And then so now people realize, okay, I can make time to go to the market. It's because it's important, right? It's not just, so it's really incredible, what's come out of this really awful time in our lives. But something had to happen because it was just going too fast. Everything was going, you couldn't keep up. And so that's what we want to continue to do at Fete, is to, like I said to Chuck, I said, we can't do any more food. Like, so what we're working on is we're short staffed, right? So rather than we are right now, like today, like the conversation I'm going to have with my husband after I talk to you guys is, what is the formula? Okay. So, and I'm not an accountant, I'm not a stats person, but there has to be some kind of formula of, like, based on the number of cooks that we have. And when I say cooks, I'm including Emily and me. What is actually sane for the restaurant? Because we can pack in as many people as we can,
right?
But we can't keep up with the food production.
Yeah, you kind of have to give up some things and, like, figure out, like, okay, with these resources, what can we do to the best, or at least to stay focused and hit that sweet spot.
Yes,
right?
And to make sure that when people do come, they're getting the experience. They're not just getting some, like, subpar,
right?
Because we're just trying to, like, hang on to the bus, right, while the wheels are coming off. So but again, that's something that is, it's the owner's responsibility to recognize those things and to make a move.
Yeah, get ahead of it before it just runs you.
I feel like we're not ahead of it.
No, I think
you're doing
that's
it
what
today, and that's the best that you can do.
And I think that's what kind of separates you too, because you're not just thinking as the chef. You're thinking also as, like, the business owner and how to, like, stay alive and, like, make everything work, So you're putting all the pieces together. A good leader.
Great leader.
Yeah.
And we're rooting for you.
Yes.
And we will just come to Fete whenever we can get a reservation, even if it's 3:00 in the afternoon
Eating
for
dinner.
So the secret is I know we use Open Table, but we always leave space. So if Open Table is not happening, just call the restaurant or stop
maybe there's
in.
a cancellation.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
So we keep some wiggle room in there just in case.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your award and your success.
Thank you.
It's been so nice to talk to you about it all.
Ooh, podcasts are fun.
Yeah. It's time to do more, huh? I'm so stoked that
this is your first podcast.
First one, yeah.
Yes, first podcast. I love it.
You nailed it. You killed it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed Chef's story, and please subscribe, like,
Fete.
yes, go see her at
FeteHawaii.com.
Yes.
Or on Instagram at Fete Hawaii.
Yes.
As well. Okay. Yes. Are you anywhere an Open Table, and how can people make a reservation?
Open Table is the best.
Okay.
Second best is call the restaurant. And if someone's not answering the phones, because everyone's running around, so
they're short-staffed, all right.
But just try again. Be patient with us, please. Thank you.
Nice.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, guys.